Guard Shows Exceptional Horsemanship when tourists did this at Horse Guard's parade. The air was crisp but comfortable, carrying the faint sounds of the city waking up. The distant rumble of buses, the chatter of pedestrians, and the occasional clang of metal from nearby constructions. Yet amid all this modern activity, the parade ground stood as a serene and timeless place, where history seemed to pause and watch over the present. The vast open space, lined with cobblestones and bordered by elegant white buildings, looked almost magical under the soft morning glow. Every corner of the square whispered stories of centuries past, tales of kings and queens, of ceremonies and celebrations, of discipline and pride. On this particular morning, a crowd had gathered, a mix of locals, tourists, and photographers. Some were families with small children clinging to their parents' hands, eyes wide with curiosity. Others were young travelers, cameras ready to capture every moment, hoping to immortalize a piece of the history unfolding before them. There were even elderly visitors, moving slowly but with a quiet excitement, eager to relive memories or finally witness the famous ceremony they had only read about. The diversity of the crowd made the scene feel alive, buzzing with a kind of quiet energy that only happens when something important is about to occur. In the middle of the parade ground stood the King's Guard, statuesque and silent, clad in their iconic red tunics and polished black boots that gleamed in the sunlight. Their tall bearskin hats added a sense of grandeur, making them appear almost larger than life. They were not just soldiers, they were symbols of tradition, discipline, and pride. Even when standing still, their presence commanded respect. Every detail of their uniform seemed perfectly in place, the golden buttons, the crisp collars, and the immaculate boots. It was clear that years of training and practice had honed not just their skills, but their entire demeanor. The horses, too, were a sight to behold. Majestic animals with shiny coats and well-groomed manets stood patiently beside their riders. Their ears twitched occasionally, attentive to every small sound and movement, but they remained calm, almost regal. Each horse seemed to understand the importance of the occasion, exuding a quiet strength that matched the disciplined air of the guards. Their hooves made a soft clopping sound on the cobblestones as they shifted slightly, reminding everyone that these were living creatures, trained to perform under intense scrutiny. As the tourists positioned themselves around the parade ground, there was a sense of anticipation in the air. Cameras clicked, phones recorded, and children whispered excitedly to their parents. Some visitors had brought guidebooks, flipping pages quickly to read about the history of the King's Guard, while others relied solely on their imagination, eager to see the soldiers in action. The crowd's energy was a mix of curiosity and awe, a silent acknowledgement that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Among the crowd, a group of young tourists from abroad could not contain their excitement. They moved closer to the parade area, pointing and gesturing, trying to get a better view. Their laughter and chatter added a lively contrast to the otherwise solemn atmosphere. A few of them whispered to each other, making guesses about what would happen next, while others took turns posing for photos with the guards in the background. Their enthusiasm, though harmless, brought a subtle tension to the scene, one that the guards were trained to handle with calm professionalism. The guards themselves remained perfectly composed, their eyes scanning the surroundings with a steady focus. Despite the crowd and the occasional sudden movements from tourists, they did not flinch or break formation. Their training had taught them to remain still, to respond only when necessary, and to maintain an air of calm authority at all times. The soldiers' posture was flawless, their expressions neutral yet commanding, giving the impression that they were part of the very ground beneath them, rooted in history and tradition. Slowly, the ceremony began to take shape. A distant trumpet sounded, its clear note cutting through the ambient noise and signaling the start of the formal procession. The guards adjusted their positions with precise, almost mechanical movements, each step synchronized as if choreographed by an invisible hand. The horses responded immediately to their riders' subtle cues, moving gracefully in formation, their hooves striking the cobblestones with rhythmic precision. It was a dance of discipline and skill, one that had been perfected over decades and carried on with unwavering dedication. The tourists watched in awe, their previous chatter fading into respectful silence. Many raised their cameras, trying to capture the perfect angle, but even as they clicked away, they couldn't help but pause to simply admire the spectacle. There was something mesmerizing about the combination of human skill and animal grace, something that went beyond mere performance. It felt almost sacred, as though they were witnessing a living tradition that had survived centuries of change. Among the crowd, some children pressed closer to the barriers, their eyes shining with excitement. They pointed at the guards and whispered questions to their parents. Why are their hats so tall? How do the horses stay so calm? And received patient explanations in return. The parents smiled, perhaps recalling their own first visits to the parade ground, remembering the same mix of awe and curiosity that filled the air today. It was a shared experience across generations, a moment that connected the past with the present in a simple but profound way. As the ceremony continued, the crowd slowly settled into a rhythm of observation. Some visitors focused on the guards' movements, noting the precision of each step and the way they guided their horses with subtle signals. Others admired the horses themselves, marveling at their strength, beauty, and calm demeanor. There was a sense of harmony in the scene, a perfect balance between human discipline, animal grace, and the quiet enthusiasm of those who had come to witness it. Even with the crowds pressing closer, the guards remained vigilant. Their eyes scanned every corner, not with suspicion, but with awareness. Every tourist, every movement, and every sound was noted, yet nothing broke the calm flow of the ceremony. The horses, sensing the confidence of their riders, remained steady, their breaths measured, their bodies poised for any sudden commands. It was a delicate dance of trust and training, a relationship built on respect and understanding that was invisible to most but vital to maintaining order and safety. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the parade ground. The light highlighted every detail of the guards, uniforms, and the horses' sleek coats, making the scene feel even more vivid and alive. Tourists continued to take photos and videos, eager to capture memories that they would later share with friends and family. Yet for all the technology and documentation, there was an unspoken understanding that some moments were meant to be experienced rather than recorded. The atmosphere was electric yet calm, filled with an appreciation for tradition, skill, and the quiet beauty of disciplined performance. As part one of the story unfolded, it became clear that this was more than just a ceremony. It was a living history lesson, a display of dedication, and a testament to the remarkable bond between the King's Guard and their horses. Every detail, from the polished boots to the careful movements of the riders, told a story of hard work, respect, and pride. The crowd, wide-eyed and engaged, absorbed it all with fascination, unaware that they were about to witness an unexpected moment that would make this morning unforgettable. The peaceful atmosphere at Horse Guard's parade began to shift subtly as more tourists pressed closer to the barriers, eager to get a better view. The morning sun had climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the parade ground, making the red uniforms of the King's Guard shine brilliantly. The horses stood proudly beside their riders, seemingly unfazed by the growing crowd, yet their ears twitched occasionally, picking up every tiny sound. The clatter of cameras and the soft murmur of voices filled the air, a lively background to the disciplined scene unfolding before them. Among the tourists were a few who were more curious than cautious. They leaned over the barriers slightly, trying to get the perfect photograph, or waved to the guards in a playful manner. Some were completely unaware of the subtle cues from the horses, not realizing that even a small movement or sudden sound could startle these large animals. The guards, trained for years in maintaining control under all circumstances, noticed these small disturbances but did not react immediately. Their eyes, sharp and attentive, followed the crowd without showing any sign of worry, projecting calm authority as they always did. At first, the disturbances seemed minor. A tourist stepped a little too close, another leaned forward to snap a selfie, and a group of children giggled loudly as they waved at the horses. For a moment, it seemed like a simple, harmless scene, the type of excitement one would expect from visitors seeing something new and fascinating. The horses shifted slightly in response, their hooves making soft clopping sounds on the cobblestones. Some of the guards adjusted their posture subtly, maintaining the perfect line of the formation while keeping their horses calm. Their eyes remained fixed ahead, their expressions neutral, showing no sign of tension. However, as often happens in crowded public spaces, excitement can grow faster than anyone expects. One young tourist, perhaps caught up in the energy of the moment, stepped closer than allowed, holding out a smartphone to take a video. Another tourist, wanting a better angle, moved around behind the barriers, inadvertently brushing close to the horse's hind legs. The animals, sensitive to sudden movements and unfamiliar noises, began to fidget slightly. The crowd noticed, and a quiet tension began to ripple through the spectators. People whispered to each other, sensing that something unusual was about to happen. Despite the growing commotion, the guards remained statuesque. Years of training had prepared them for situations like this, where distractions and unexpected movements could occur at any time. Their hands rested lightly on the reins, ready to guide their horses if needed, while their bodies remained perfectly still. Each soldier understood that even a small display of panic could cause the horses to react, and that maintaining calm control was not just about discipline, it was about safety. The subtle commands they gave their horses were almost invisible to the crowd, gentle shifts in posture and pressure that communicated trust and leadership. The horses responded with remarkable composure at first. They adjusted their stance slightly, moving their hooves with quiet precision, and flicked their ears to assess the crowd. The largest horse, a dark bay stallion, lifted its head and scanned the area, its breath visible in the cool morning air. Its rider, a tall guard with a polished helmet and gleaming boots, held the reins firmly yet gently, making minute adjustments to reassure the animal. The partnership between horse and rider was evident, an unspoken understanding that allowed the ceremony to continue smoothly despite the distractions. Yet, moments of unpredictability can arrive in the blink of an eye. One tourist, eager to get a photo, suddenly stepped even closer, misjudging the space between themselves and the horse. The animal shied slightly, its ears flicking back as it took a careful step. The crowd gasped softly, a ripple of tension passing through the spectators. Children clutched their parents' hands, and even the photographers paused, cameras raised but frozen in the air. Everyone sensed that the balance between calm and chaos was delicate, that the moment required careful attention to avoid turning into something dangerous. The guard on the dark bay stallion reacted immediately, but with grace and precision. His body shifted slightly, his heels pressing subtly against the horse's sides to guide it forward while keeping its movements controlled. He adjusted the reins with the slightest touch, communicating reassurance rather than force. The horse responded instantly, stepping back into alignment with the other guards, its tension easing as it followed the quiet instructions of its rider. The coordination was flawless, the result of countless hours of training for both horse and human. It was a moment that showed not just skill, but the depth of trust between a soldier and an animal trained to perform under pressure. The crowd watched in awe as the situation resolved without incident. A few murmurs of admiration spread through the spectators, whispers praising the guard's composure and the horse's calm response. Some tourists, realizing the potential danger of stepping too close, moved back and offered more space. The children, still wide-eyed, whispered excitedly to their parents about what they had just seen, unaware of how close the moment had come to disruption. Cameras clicked again, capturing not just the ceremony but also the subtle drama that had unfolded in real time. Meanwhile, the other guards remained alert. They had noticed the crowd's energy shifting, the slight movements that could affect their horses, and they adjusted their posture accordingly. Some shifted their weight, others repositioned their reins, all without breaking the line of formation. The discipline was remarkable. Each soldier acted individually yet in perfect harmony with the others, maintaining the overall structure of the ceremony. The precision and calm presence of the guards seemed almost magical to the tourists, many of whom had never witnessed such skill in person. As the moment passed, the crowd began to settle again. Tourists whispered among themselves, some expressing relief that the situation had remained under control, others marveling at the guards' professionalism. Parents explained to their children why the horses had reacted and how the guards had managed to calm them, turning the incident into a small lesson in patience, respect, and discipline. The young travelers, who had caused some of the initial tension, looked around sheepishly, perhaps realizing that their excitement had almost disrupted something much larger than themselves. In the midst of the quieting crowd, the ceremony continued seamlessly. The guards moved through their precise routines, their boots striking the cobblestones in perfect rhythm, while the horses followed every command with fluid grace. It was a display of control, skill, and trust, made even more impressive by the recent challenge they had managed so calmly. The spectators, now fully attentive, began to notice even the smallest details. The way a horse lifted its leg, the way a rider shifted weight slightly to communicate, the way the line of guards remained unbroken despite the distractions. By the time the ceremony reached the midpoint, it was clear to everyone that what they were witnessing was more than just a public display. It was a demonstration of resilience, of the ability to remain calm under pressure, and of the deep connection between humans and animals. The guards, with their unwavering focus, and the horses, with their trained composure, had turned a potentially chaotic moment into a lesson in mastery and calm confidence. The tourists, many of whom had only come to take photos, were now fully engaged in the experience, watching closely as every move and countermove unfolded with precision. Some photographers even captured the moment where the young tourist had stepped too close, framing it in the background while focusing on the guard and horse in the foreground. The image told a story without words, a story of discipline, patience, and remarkable horsemanship. Social media users who later saw similar pictures shared them widely, praising not just the guards but the horses, recognizing the effort and training that went into every step of the ceremony. It was a reminder that history is not only something written in books, it is something lived and performed, sometimes in the quietest but most impressive ways. As the morning continued, the crowd's energy shifted from nervous excitement to admiration. People whispered to each other about the experience, describing the impressive coordination between the guards and their horses. Children drew sketches in small notepads, trying to capture the precise shapes and movements they had seen. Tourists made careful video recordings, ensuring they preserved every detail of the display. Even those who had initially been distracted or careless seemed to develop a newfound respect for the ceremony, understanding that the guards, patience, and skill were essential to maintaining the tradition safely. By the time part 2 of the story drew to a close, the unexpected moment had become an unforgettable lesson. It had reminded everyone that even in the midst of beauty, tradition, and ceremony, there could be challenges requiring calm, experience, and exceptional skill. The King's Guard had handled the situation flawlessly, their composure never faltering, their partnership with their horses on full display. And for the tourists, it had been a rare chance to see history in action, to witness how discipline, patience, and trust could turn a potentially disruptive situation into a moment of awe and admiration. The parade continued, yet the tension from the previous incident lingered. Subtly in the air, the crowd, while still excited, had grown quieter, each visitor now more attentive to every movement of the King's Guard and their majestic horses. The guards maintained their flawless formation, moving in rhythm across the cobblestones, their boots striking the ground in perfect unison. The horses followed each command with precision, their hooves creating a gentle rhythm that harmonized with the soft rustle of the crowd. It was a display of discipline that seemed effortless, yet everyone present knew it was the result of years of training, dedication, and partnership between human and animal. In the midst of the ceremony, one particular guard began to stand out. Mounted on a tall, muscular chestnut horse, he seemed to embody calm authority in every movement. His eyes scanned the crowd with careful attention, noting not just the obvious distractions, but the subtle shifts in the audience's energy. He could sense when a child leaned too close to the barrier, or when a tourist adjusted a camera at an unexpected angle. Every small movement mattered because horses, for all their training, are sensitive creatures. One wrong gesture, one sudden motion, could change the atmosphere in an instant. It was in that moment that another unexpected challenge emerged. A small group of tourists, unaware of the delicate balance between horse and rider, moved closer than they should have. Some were waving, some gesturing, and one even held out a bright object, an umbrella that flapped slightly in the wind. The horses' ears flicked nervously, their bodies tensing just enough for a trained eye to notice. A murmur ran through the crowd, a mix of curiosity and unease. The situation was harmless for the most part, but it was enough to test the guard's skills in a real and immediate way. The guard on the chestnut horse reacted instantly, but with an elegance that spoke of years of experience. He shifted his weight subtly, using his body as a guide for the horse. His hands, holding the reins, applied the gentlest pressure, directing the animal without force or panic. The horse responded immediately, its large body moving with grace as it adjusted its position slightly, away from the crowd. Every movement was controlled, deliberate, and precise. It was a dance between rider and horse, a silent communication that only those who truly understand the bond could fully appreciate. The crowd watched in awe. Cameras clicked rapidly, capturing not just the ceremony but the quiet heroism of the moment. Tourists whispered to each other, pointing out the guard's skill and the horse's calm response. Some parents lifted their children higher so they could see, explaining that the soldiers were not just performing a routine, but actively managing the situation to keep everyone safe. The young tourists who had caused the distraction realized, perhaps for the first time, that the guards, patience, and horsemanship were not just for show. They were essential to maintaining control and ensuring that nothing went wrong. Even as the chestnut horse adjusted, the other guards remained vigilant. They sensed the shift in the crowd and the slight tension among the horses. Their posture remained perfect, their eyes sharp and their hands steady. It was as if the entire formation was alive, each soldier responding to the needs of their horse while keeping the line intact. The precision of their movements made it almost impossible for the spectators to notice the full complexity of what was happening. To an untrained eye, it might have seemed like simple ceremony, but in reality, it was an intricate orchestration of awareness, skill, and discipline. The guards' actions did more than just correct the situation, they prevented potential panic. Horses, for all their training, can be unpredictable if startled, and even a small movement could cause a chain reaction. A startled horse might step backward, jolt forward, or even sidestep into another horse, creating chaos in the formation. Yet the chestnut horse moved calmly, guided by the subtle cues of its rider. The guard's posture, the gentle pressure of the reins, and the careful positioning of his legs all communicated a sense of safety and leadership. It was a quiet mastery that left the crowd both impressed and grateful, though most only realized it after the fact. The situation also highlighted the unique relationship between horse and rider. Unlike vehicles or machines, horses are living, thinking beings, capable of sensing emotions and reacting instinctively. The guard had to remain calm, confident, and controlled to transmit the necessary reassurance. Every movement he made was a form of communication, telling the horse that it was safe to remain steady despite the distractions. The crowd could see the result, an elegant animal responding flawlessly to subtle guidance, but they could only imagine the training and trust that made it possible. As the ceremony progressed, the guard continued to monitor the crowd and his horse, anticipating potential disruptions before they could happen. A tourist accidentally dropped a camera case near the barriers, producing a sudden clatter. Most people would have flinched, but the guard and horse reacted as one. The rider's gentle shift of weight and the soft guidance through the reins reassured the animal instantly. The horse barely moved, just enough to maintain balance and composure. The crowd murmured in appreciation, witnessing firsthand the level of skill required to manage such a large, powerful animal in a busy public setting. What made this moment even more remarkable was how seamlessly the guard's actions blended into the ceremony. No one outside the parade formation could see the full scope of the adjustments being made, yet the line remained unbroken, the rhythm intact, and the overall display uninterrupted. The precision was breathtaking. Observers could focus on the beauty of the uniforms, the shine of the boots, and the elegance of the horses' movements, but beneath it all was a layer of skill that ensured safety and order. The guard's horsemanship was both protective and invisible, a rare combination that demanded years of dedication. Even among the other guards, admiration could be sensed. Subtle nods, tiny shifts in posture, and brief eye contact communicated acknowledgement and trust. Within the ranks, they shared an unspoken understanding that moments like these tested not only technical skill, but the ability to remain calm under pressure. Each horse and rider pair operated as a single unit, capable of responding to challenges with precision and grace. The crowd, for all their attention, could only glimpse the surface, not the depth of coordination required. The tourists, now more aware of their surroundings, began to give the guards and horses more space. Cameras were still raised, but the sudden flapping of umbrellas or leaning over barriers became less frequent. Parents kept a closer eye on their children, and the group that had caused the initial distraction apologized quietly, perhaps realizing that their actions had been more significant than they had imagined. The crowd's behavior shifted naturally, a quiet recognition that the ceremony was both a performance and a demonstration of skill, patience, and control. As the minutes passed, the guard continued to lead his horse with quiet authority. Each step, each gentle nudge of the reins, was a testament to the bond they shared. The crowd, having witnessed the subtle drama, grew more respectful and attentive, appreciating not just the visual spectacle but the underlying mastery at play. It was a rare teaching moment disguised as a ceremony, a living example of discipline, patience, and understanding between humans and animals. By the end of Part 3, the guard's exceptional horsemanship had transformed the morning. What could have been a disruptive moment became an extraordinary demonstration of skill, leaving the crowd impressed and inspired. Tourists whispered to each other, sharing their admiration, while photographers continued to capture every subtle gesture of control and elegance. The guard remained calm, vigilant, and composed, embodying the very essence of what it meant to serve as part of the king's guard. The incident also highlighted an important lesson for everyone present. Respect and awareness are as essential as discipline and skill. Even in a setting meant for ceremony and display, there is room for unpredictability. The guard's actions reminded all observers that mastery is not only about performing routine tasks perfectly, but also about responding gracefully to the unexpected. The crowd left with a deeper understanding of the effort, training, and trust required to maintain the seamless beauty of the ceremony. After the tense moment with the tourists, the atmosphere at Horse Guard's parade slowly began to calm. The crowd, still buzzing with excitement and curiosity, seemed to have developed a newfound respect for the king's guard and their horses. Parents whispered explanations to their children, pointing out the skill and composure that had prevented a small disruption from becoming something more serious. The tourists, too, seemed to understand that their actions had consequences, and they began giving the guards and horses more space. It was as if everyone had collectively learned the unspoken rules of the parade: admiration, patience, and awareness. The guard on the chestnut horse, who had handled the previous distraction with such skill, now took on a quieter, almost supervisory role. His movements were still precise, his posture perfect, but his attention shifted to observing the entire parade ground. The other guards, fully aware of the incident, seemed to mirror his vigilance, their eyes scanning the crowd, their bodies remaining alert yet composed. Even though the immediate threat had passed, the soldiers knew that maintaining control was a continuous effort. In the world of ceremonial duties, vigilance never truly ends. Meanwhile, the horses responded beautifully to the calming rhythm of the formation. Their bodies, once slightly tense, now moved with elegance and confidence. Their hooves struck the cobblestones in perfect synchronization, producing a soft, steady sound that blended with the ambient murmurs of the crowd. The chestnut horse, guided by the careful hands of its rider, displayed a gentle sway in its gait, almost like a graceful nod to the audience, showing that it was relaxed and comfortable despite the earlier tension. The bond between rider and animal was unmistakable, a silent testament to trust built over countless hours of training. Tourists took a step back, their excitement now mixed with awe. Cameras and smartphones clicked rapidly, but this time there was a sense of reverence. Everyone seemed aware that they were witnessing something more than just a ceremonial display. They were seeing a living demonstration of patience, discipline, and skill. Children watched wide-eyed, whispering questions to their parents about the horses and the guards. How do they stay so calm? Do they practice every day? Their curiosity reflected the admiration that had begun to spread through the crowd, an understanding that behind every polished uniform and gleaming boot lay years of hard work and dedication. The guards continued their routine with flawless precision. Their movements, though repetitive, never felt monotonous. Each step, each turn, each subtle adjustment of the reins was executed with care, ensuring that the ceremony retained both beauty and safety. The audience, now fully engaged, watched every detail. The way a rider adjusted his posture to cue a horse, the way a horse lifted its hoof with quiet grace, the synchronized rhythm of the entire formation. What had begun as a moment of tension had transformed into a deeper appreciation for the skill involved in the parade. The chestnut horse's rider remained particularly attentive. He subtly guided his horse closer to the center of the parade formation, ensuring that the line remained unbroken. At the same time, he maintained a keen awareness of the crowd, noting small movements, gestures, or unexpected noises. His calm demeanor seemed to influence not only his horse, but also the other soldiers and their animals. In a way, he had become the anchor of the parade, a symbol of composure and control. The audience could sense this, even if they didn't fully understand the complexity of the task, and their admiration deepened. Gradually, the parade moved through its scheduled sequence of movements, each guard performing with steady confidence. Horses responded to the smallest cues from their riders, shifting weight, turning, or stepping in perfect timing with the rest of the formation. Even minor adjustments made during previous disruptions were now integrated seamlessly, demonstrating the flexibility and skill that defined these elite soldiers. The spectacle became not just a display of tradition, but a lesson in the quiet power of preparation, training, and mutual trust between horse and rider. Among the crowd, conversations shifted from casual chatter to genuine appreciation. Tourists shared observations with each other, noting how calm the horses were, how disciplined the soldiers appeared, and how any potential disruption had been handled so smoothly. Some even laughed quietly, acknowledging their own earlier mistakes or the excitement that had nearly caused chaos. Children continued to watch with wide eyes, mimicking the precise movements of the guards with their hands or trying to count the rhythmic steps of the horses. In that moment, the audience was fully engaged, absorbed not just in the ceremony, but in the story unfolding right before their eyes. The subtle adjustments of the guards were a highlight. Even small movements of the reins or shifts in posture were noticed by some of the more observant spectators. Photographers captured these moments, framing images that showed the elegance of the horses, the precision of the soldiers, and the calm authority of the riders. Social media users would later praise these photos for showing not just the visual spectacle, but the quiet mastery behind it. It was a reminder that every movement, no matter how small, contributes to the overall success of a performance. The crowd's admiration grew as the parade continued without further incidents. Children clapped quietly, tourists whispered in awe, and even passers-by who had not planned to watch paused to observe the scene. The combination of disciplined human skill and graceful animal behavior was mesmerizing. Every guard seemed to anticipate not just the movements of their horse, but the potential reactions of the crowd. Every horse seemed to trust its rider completely, responding instantly to subtle guidance and maintaining calm, even in a busy, noisy environment. The result was a seamless performance, a living example of harmony and discipline. At one point, the chestnut horse performed a slight turn, following a cue that was nearly imperceptible to the untrained eye. The rider's hand moved just enough to guide the animal, his legs pressed gently against its sides, and the horse responded immediately, turning in perfect alignment with the other horses. The crowd gasped softly, impressed by the precision of the movements. For many, it was a magical moment, where human skill and animal grace merged flawlessly in front of their eyes. The guard's ability to maintain calm control in every situation had transformed what could have been a simple ceremonial routine into a memorable experience for all present. The other guards and horses followed suit, adjusting their positions slightly to maintain the integrity of the formation. Every small correction, every subtle guidance from the riders demonstrated the immense discipline and experience that went into performing the ceremony flawlessly. The audience could see the result, even if they could not fully grasp the intricacy of the coordination involved. It was a rare chance to witness history and tradition in action, combined with an extraordinary display of horsemanship under real-life conditions. As the parade neared its conclusion, the crowd's respect and admiration had reached a peak. Cameras clicked one last time, phones recorded final moments, and children waved goodbye to the horses with shy smiles. Parents explained how important discipline and respect were in such a setting, and tourists exchanged stories of what they had witnessed. Some spoke about how impressed they were by the guards' ability to handle the situation earlier, while others marveled at the grace and composure of the horses. The moment had become more than just a ceremony. It had evolved into a lesson in skill, patience, and trust. The chestnut horse and its rider, along with the other guards, guided the formation back to its final positions. Every movement was executed with the same precision and care that had defined the ceremony from the beginning. The horses, now fully relaxed, shifted slightly in place, occasionally flicking their ears or stamping their hooves gently. The guards maintained perfect posture, their eyes scanning the surroundings one last time, ensuring that every step of the parade ended as smoothly as it had begun. The audience, still quiet with admiration, watched as tradition, skill, and horsemanship came together in a flawless conclusion. By the end of the ceremony, the parade had not only returned to calm and order, but it had left a lasting impression on everyone present. The small moment of disruption had been transformed into an extraordinary display of discipline, patience, and horsemanship. Tourists left with stories to tell, children left with memories that would stay with them for years, and the guards and their horses had once again demonstrated the remarkable skill required to perform such a historic duty. The morning had started as a simple observation of tradition, but had evolved into a vivid lesson in grace under pressure. As the ceremony came to its natural conclusion, the crowd began to disperse slowly, yet there was a quiet energy in the air that lingered long after the last. Trumpet sounded. Visitors moved carefully among the parade ground, some still taking photographs, while others whispered to each other about the extraordinary moments they had just witnessed. It was as if everyone carried a small piece of the experience with them, a memory that would remain vivid and meaningful long after they left. Children clutched the hands of their parents, pointing to the horses one last time and repeating details about the guards, uniforms, the way the horses moved, and the calm authority of the riders. The audience had been transformed from casual spectators into participants in a living story of discipline, tradition, and trust. The guard on the chestnut horse, whose horsemanship had become central to the morning's events, allowed himself a quiet moment of satisfaction. Though his face remained calm and expressionless, as required by protocol, there was an unmistakable sense of pride in the way he guided his horse through the final steps of the formation. The bond between him and his horse had been on full display, evident to anyone who had been watching closely. It was not just skill that had been shown. It was trust, patience, and understanding built over years of rigorous training. Every gesture, every adjustment, every subtle cue had reflected a deep partnership between human and animal, a partnership that made the ceremony both safe and mesmerizing. The other guards, too, moved with a sense of quiet accomplishment. Though the moment of disruption had tested them, they had handled it with precision and grace, ensuring that the ceremony continued flawlessly. Their training had prepared them for challenges, but it was their calm composure under pressure that truly impressed the onlookers. The combination of discipline, focus, and experience created a performance that was far more than just a display of uniformed soldiers on horseback. It was a living example of resilience, professionalism, and the power of preparation. Tourists lingered, reluctant to leave the parade ground. Many spoke quietly to one another about the lesson they had witnessed. "Did you see how calm he stayed?" one whispered. "And how the horse just followed him perfectly," another replied. Parents explained to children that the guards' composure had prevented what could have been a dangerous situation, teaching lessons in respect, responsibility, and careful observation. Even those who had caused the minor disruptions earlier now understood the importance of awareness and patience. They had been participants in a learning experience without even realizing it, and the moment would likely remain with them for years to come. The horses themselves, majestic and strong, began to relax fully. Their breathing slowed, their muscles loosened, and they shifted gently from hoof to hoof. Despite the excitement of the morning and the brief tension earlier, they had remained disciplined and responsive, guided every step of the way by their rider's skill. Visitors watched in awe, realizing that the animals' calmness was not just natural behavior, but the result of careful training and deep mutual trust with their riders. It was a partnership that transcended words, communicated through subtle gestures, posture, and presence. As the crowd began to thin, a few spectators lingered to observe the guards as they prepared to leave the parade ground. The soldiers moved with deliberate care, ensuring that their horses remained calm and steady as they walked. Each step was precise, maintaining control even as the audience slowly dispersed. Some of the tourists approached to ask polite questions, curious about the training of both guards and horses. The responses were brief but respectful, highlighting the discipline, dedication, and long hours required to achieve such mastery. The tourists left with a sense of respect, not just for the ceremony, but for the skill and patience that lay behind every perfectly timed step. The morning's events also provided a lesson in humility for many visitors. It was easy to admire the visual spectacle, the gleaming red uniforms, the tall hats, and the polished boots. But the true lesson lay in understanding the dedication, discipline, and quiet heroism behind the scenes. One small distraction could have created chaos, yet the guards and horses handled it seamlessly, turning potential disorder into a demonstration of skill and composure. For the audience, this subtle lesson in awareness and respect became an unforgettable part of their experience. Even as the parade ground grew quieter, the impact of the day was evident. Children drew pictures of the horses and guards in notebooks, capturing the movements and poses they had admired. Tourists reviewed their photographs, reliving moments of tension and grace. The shared experience had created a subtle bond among the spectators, a collective understanding of what it meant to witness something extraordinary. The guard on the chestnut horse, who had been at the center of the most delicate moment, had become a symbol of composure, patience, and exceptional skill, a reminder that mastery often requires calm and quiet effort rather than grand gestures. For the guards themselves, the day was a reaffirmation of the values they represented. Each member of the parade had a role to play, not only in performing the ceremony, but in ensuring the safety and well-being of both the audience and the horses. The subtle corrections, careful guidance, and disciplined presence were all part of a larger tradition that extended far beyond a single morning's performance. The trust between horse and rider, the focus on composure under pressure, and the commitment to maintaining tradition were qualities that defined the King's Guard as both a ceremonial and professional force. The lessons from the morning extended beyond the parade ground. Tourists reflected on what they had seen, realizing that admiration alone was not enough. Respect and patience were essential when observing such a display, and even small actions could have meaningful consequences. Children learned about the importance of being aware of their surroundings, of treating animals and people with care, and of appreciating the dedication required for excellence. The guards had demonstrated that skill is not just about precision, but about responsibility, attention, and the ability to remain calm in challenging situations. As the parade came to a full close, the guards and their horses lined up one final time, giving the audience a perfect image of harmony and discipline. The horses' coats gleamed in the sunlight, their movements relaxed and natural. The guards stood tall, their uniforms immaculate, their posture unwavering. The audience applauded quietly, many raising cameras for one final shot, capturing not only the beauty of the ceremony but also the lessons it had conveyed. It was a moment of reflection, a visual representation of skill, patience, and trust. The young tourists who had caused minor distractions earlier now approached with smiles, offering quiet thanks to the guards for their patience. They had witnessed firsthand the skill and professionalism required to manage unexpected situations. The experience had been humbling and enlightening, leaving a lasting impression that went far beyond the mere act of taking photographs. The lessons learned in that brief encounter would remain with them for years, a reminder of the value of calm, observation, and respect. In the days and weeks that followed, many tourists shared their experiences with friends and family. Stories of the King's Guard and their exceptional horsemanship spread, highlighting not just the visual spectacle, but the subtle, impressive skills that ensured the ceremony's success. Social media posts celebrated the discipline, calm, and grace displayed, inspiring admiration and respect across a wider audience. The parade had become more than a historical display. It had become a living lesson in skill, patience, and partnership between humans and animals. For those who had attended, the morning became a memory that would stay with them for a lifetime. Children talked excitedly about the horses and guards, Parents reflected on the lessons of calm and patience, and tourists marveled at the seamless combination of tradition and skill. The chestnut horse and its rider, who had so gracefully handled the earlier disruptions, became a symbol of quiet mastery. Their example reminded everyone that excellence is often demonstrated not through grand gestures, but through subtle control, preparation, and the ability to remain composed when faced with unexpected challenges. As the last of the tourists departed, the king's guard and their horses returned to their stables, carrying with them another day of disciplined service completed flawlessly. The sun continued to shine over the parade ground, reflecting off the cobblestones and the polished uniforms, a reminder of the timeless nature of tradition. The experience had left a mark not only on those who witnessed it, but also on the legacy of the parade itself, a testament to the dedication, patience, and skill that define the King's Guard. By the end of the day, it was clear that the story of the morning would be remembered for years to come. It was not just about a ceremonial display or a brief moment of tension. It was about the lessons in calmness, awareness, and horsemanship that everyone present had experienced. The guards and horses had turned a potentially disruptive situation into an extraordinary demonstration of skill and professionalism. For tourists, children, and locals alike, the morning had become an unforgettable reminder that discipline, trust, and patience are qualities that shine brightest in the face of challenge.